G'day everybody, it's Michael Hanrahan here from Publish Central. Thanks for joining us. And I've got Jeff Hetherington. G'day Jeff.
Hey Jeff.
Yeah, people starting to filter in now. Fantastic. Darren, how you doing? Bev, Ryan. Excellent.
Howdy folks.
If everybody could just, you know the drill, just put a quick hello in the chat box just so you know you can hear me. We're not sitting here talking to ourselves. Thanks, Jeff.
Good morning, Cherry. Hi, Daz. Hi, Bev. You're going to be sick of me by the end of the week.
Thanks, Darren. Excellent. So we'll get started and people can just tune in as they get here. Susan, g'day. Excellent. So thanks so much for coming along today. This is the second official Publish Central webinar. So today we've got Tracy Sheen, who I know many of you know. So if you didn't catch the first webinar, it was using partnerships to leverage your book and grow your business, which we did a few weeks ago with the fabulous Katrina McCarter. G'day Louise, lots more people tuning in now. You can go to publishcentral.tv, our YouTube channel, if you want to check that out. All of our webinars will be on there after a few months, so they initially only go to people who logged in. But today we have the wonderful Tracy Sheen, who's going to give us top tech tips for authors. So I'm quickly going to introduce Tracy and myself. So there's many familiar faces, but also a few people who we don't know. So for those who don't know me, I'm Michael Hanrahan. I'm the founder and managing editor of founder and director at Publish Central. I'm former managing editor at John Wiley & Sons. I run Publish Central. We're Australia's #1 provider of self-publishing services for entrepreneurs and small business authors. And I'm also the co-founder with Andrew Griffiths of the Australian Business Book Awards, now in its 4th year and just gearing up for the 2022 awards. So make sure you check that out if you've got a book you think you can enter. And joining us today is the one and only Tracy Sheen. Thanks heaps for coming along, Tracy. Good to have you.
Lovely to be here.
Now, Tracy, for those who don't know, is the author of The End of Technophobia. Absolutely fabulous book. We've both got a copy. I haven't got the stickers on the front, Tracy. I've got an old version. So that won the Book of the Year in the Australian Business Book Awards in 2021. So that's a fabulous achievement, and also Best Technology Book. Tracy was also included in the top 50 Australian small business leaders by Inside Small Business in 2021, and is a regular technology commentator in the media, including very recently now regular on Kochie's Business Builders TV show. So that's fabulous. So you listen to a real expert. She's an approved small business advisor to the federal government and has been recognised as a certified practicing marketer through the Australian Marketing Institute. She's facilitated hundreds of workshops and webinars on a wide range of topics and is a regular on judging panels for the Australian Marketing Awards, the Australian Podcast Awards, the Australian Business Book Awards, and the Australian Web Awards. So I don't know how you find any time to actually do any work, Tracy, with all that stuff going on. I
should put a caveat in there that I was not allowed to judge my own awards last year.
Yes, very important. Yeah, we do need to point that out. So we booted Tracy off the judging panel last year because she entered. So certainly no favoritism going on there. So just some quick housekeeping, and then we'll let Tracy get into it. We're expecting this to be around 60 minutes today. Don't feel that you have to frantically write notes. Tracy's going to prepare a blog after the session with links and the names of all the apps we're going to talk about, and we're going to send that around. And we'll also be sending a video recording. So this session's being recorded. We'll be sending a recording to everybody who's registered, in the next week or so. And then, like I say, in a couple of months, it will be up on our YouTube channel. So today we have 10 questions that I'm going to ask Tracy, and she's going to give her top tips for each one. We're going to keep it very conversational, very casual. So feel free to jump in if you've got any questions. You can use the chat box. You can use the Zoom raise your hand thing, or you can just jump around and make some noise or something. Well, I can't actually see on the screen, so that wouldn't help. So don't do that. To put it in the chat box would be a very good idea. So put it in the chat box, and I'll ask Tracy if you can keep the questions short and on point so we can keep moving. That would be great. So before we get into it, I'm going to ask Tracy one question as somebody who's recently written and published a book. If she can tell us a little bit about how she used technology in her writing and publishing process and why she thinks this stuff is important for authors to know.
Well, thanks, Michael. And hi, everyone. I just want to acknowledge Annetta, Bev, Cherry, Daz, Debbie, Jeff, Louise and Susan, thank you for sharing an hour of your time. I appreciate it. As a small business owner, I know that that's a lot to take out of your business. So I really do thank you for coming along. Well, how did I use tech? So I'm going to start by sharing my screen if I can, Michael. And I'll show you how I use technology to help me produce my book. I'm a big Trello fan. So if you're not familiar with Trello, it's kind of like Asana. There's a project management app, for want of a better phrase. And really, when I first started thinking about the book, I started thinking about, well, how do I even pull all of this together? So let me get rid of everything else in the background, which I should have done already. And here's what I did. I got my trusty Trello board out and I started to look at, well, what do I want this book to look like? So here was the start. So right through from, who am I writing the book for, the tagline, the ideal reader, etc. And then I just mapped it out. So everything from the introduction. And if you're familiar with my book, down the side, and this was Michael's wonderful idea, if you can see it, we've got the different grayed out sections which just relate to each of the sections of the book. So productivity, security, et cetera, et cetera. So once I kind of identified all of the areas that I wanted to talk about, I really just started to go through and put some chapter ideas. Now you can see then as I was doing research, I might have added different things to it. Why do we want to talk about it, etc. And as I was going through, I was tracking how many words per section, so I knew where I was with my overall word count. Now, why did I do that? I needed to stay on point, and I think that's one of the things that I see when I'm chatting with other people in our community that are looking at writing their books or even creating any kind of content, right? Blogs, anything, YouTube videos. It's about being able to stay on point and know that you're going deep in a particular topic without kind of going off in all different directions. So I use Trello for all of that kind of stuff. I have a board to plan my upcoming blogs and videos, and then I'll talk through the different sections, workshops, webinars, everything that I do, I plan out to particularly stay on point. And why is it important? You can do it on bits of paper and post-it notes, but my desk is like a dog's breakfast to begin with. So trying to find things was really difficult. And also when I was writing the book or in the lead up to writing the book, because it was COVID, so there wasn't a lot that was written outside of my office, but I operate from my phone, from my laptop, from my iPad, and wherever I'm at. So if I got an idea or a thought or I read a piece of research, I wanted to make sure that I was able to capture it on whatever device I was working on at the time. So I could just grab it, throw it into the Trello board from the phone, the iPad, the laptop, the desktop, etc. And whenever I logged in from anything again, it would all be in the same location. So long-winded answer, Michael, but hopefully that kind of kicks us off.
Yeah, no, thanks. Why do you prefer Trello over some of the other options? What are the advantages of Trello?
Look, to be perfectly honest, they all do similar things. It's just you've got to, at the end of the day, you've got to pick one and dive in and choose to learn and maximize what you can out of it. At the time, I chose Trello because it had a lot of plugins that would connect to other things and would allow me to work across teams. So I invited you, Michael, and my book coach to the board as well, so we could all be checking in and making sure that I was staying on target. Yeah. And look, Asana, they all do similar things. At the end of the day, though, with any technology, not just Trello, any of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, the biggest learning curve you'll have is the learning curve. It's kind of going, okay, I'm going to use this thing and I'm going to give it a month and I'm going to spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on what it is and what you're using it for, every day to make sure that I understand how this thing works. And at the end of the 30 days, if you're still smacking your head against a brick wall and really kind of like, oh, I've got to log into this thing again today, get rid of it, pick another tool and go through the same process again. Because, if you don't work with Trello, maybe it's Asana. You just need to find the one that gels with you, but you've got to give it a decent crack.
Yeah, excellent. Great, thanks for that, Tracy. So we'll get stuck into it without further ado. So the first of our 10 questions is, how can I write without digital interruptions?
So I used a few different tools for this when I was writing. I think the number one thing that I would recommend for everyone, and this is on whatever phone, whatever device you're using, enable the do not disturb function. Now, that could be as simple as you might just throw your phone on airplane mode. However, if you have a look in your phone, they all have now a built-in do not disturb function. So you can actually set a timer around your do not disturb. So let's say you want to write for an hour or a couple of hours, whatever that is, you can just set the do not disturb up for an hour, and that will still allow certain things to get through to you if needed. So for example, when I was writing the book, I had my dad was in hospital for some of the time. So I wanted to make sure that my mum could still ring me if I needed to speak to her. So I could, say, allow this number and this number to come through as a text message or a phone call. But at the end of that hour, I get a little wake up thing on the phone that then lets me know, it's time to step away from the computer for a bit, go and, play with the dogs or do whatever. But the do not disturb is a really, really handy function. If you don't know it, check it out on, whether it's Apple or Android or whatever you use. So that would be the first one, absolutely, that I recommend people use. Another one that I really liked was Focus at Will. And it's one to check out. It's just an app that you can download on your desktop or on your phone. And it really does just allow you to focus in and get rid of those external distractions. I don't know about you, but even writing on the desktop, just the ability to kind of, monkey brain kick in and go, oh, maybe I do need to research that thing a little more. I'll just open, Firefox, Safari, whatever, and, and quickly, because I'm doing this for the book, no, you're not. You're doing it to procrastinate. So Focus at Will is another good one. And if you're a Pomodoro fan, so the Pomodoro technique of chunking down your day, there's a great app called Tide that's worth checking out as well.
Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah, it's a very common problem for writers getting time to focus, and the digital distractions are such a big problem these days. A lot of writers talk about having a separate computer that's not connected to the internet just for their writing. So that's maybe something that you could look at as well. Go all the way.
I wouldn't recommend it to write your book, but I have the Remarkable for that reason. So all of my notes, etc., I take on that because it can't do anything else. But I wouldn't write the book in hand.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, question 2. Now, this is something that we still need to talk about. We've all heard horror stories of people losing material, which to be honest, bemuses me a bit these days. I thought everybody knew about backing up, but how can I reliably and automatically, which is, I think, a key part of it, automatically back up my work?
Yeah. So first of all, there's a thing in cybersecurity, and we call it the 3-2-1 rule. So 3 copies of your data on 2 locations, and make sure one of them is offline, so it's not connected to the internet, right? How do you do it automatically? Google. So I'm a Google person, I'm an Apple person, but if you're an Android or a Microsoft person, just Google, how do I back up my work automatically, and make sure that that stuff is set in place. Now, if you're operating in the cloud, so I wrote my book in Google Docs, I had the auto save set in. So it was constantly, every couple of lines, I'd be manically kind of like, am I still saving? Is it all good? So just check that out. Same thing with Microsoft Word. You can set that up to auto save. At the end of your session, so if you're writing for an hour, or if you're writing for a chapter, or however you choose to write, or writing for a blog, at the end of that, my little routine was always, I would then make a copy and I would save it to a different location. And I would email it. So I was emailing everything to my poor long-suffering hubby, who was getting daily kind of like, stop with the emails. And then, I'd download it as a PDF as well and save it to my desktop. So just make sure 3-2-1, 3 copies of your data, 2 locations, one of them offline. And if you don't know how to auto-save, just give it a Google for Microsoft Word, Google Docs, whatever it is you're using.
Yeah, that's fantabulous advice. I just made a foot. I was going to say fantastic and then fabulous. So I think the emailing is a great tip. I do that when I'm working on something. I've got a friend I email it to, and I'm sure he just ignores it and just archives it at his end. But just, quick, here's a Word file, please save it for me. So then if my whole system melts down, I've got a friend who's got a copy of it. So I think that's an excellent idea. Okay, thanks for that. So question number 3, is dictation software a good idea? So we've all had all sorts of experiences trying to use Siri and that kind of thing. You ask her what the weather is and she gives you the movie times. How good is that these days?
It's getting better. And I have to say, if you're an Android user, and Jeff's going to get a giggle out of this because most people know how diehard Apple I am. If you're an Android user, hands down, Google and Android are far better at interpreting native language. So if you're, that being said, I think it depends. I really was someone who just got into the flow from the brain to the fingertips and just knocked it out. But I've spoken to a lot of people that they actually got their best thoughts while they were off on a walk or going for a bike ride or, whatever that was. And they would just verbalize, their thoughts at the time and throw it into a note. And then they would use that to send to someone who could transcribe it or run it through Rev or whatever and get a transcription and turn the transcription into something. So I hate the answer, it depends, but I really think it does depend on what type of person you are and how you like to work. If you're working with a VA or something like that, then perhaps it is a good idea to sit down, because if you're like me, you can probably get out 5,000 words a minute instead of typing 64. Definitely going to be a quicker way.
Yep.
You're still going to have to go back through your work though.
And that's exactly what I was about to add as an editor, that I think keeping in mind if you do use dictation software is very much seeing it as your first draft, just like any other first draft. And Jeff's saying in the comments, I told you so.
It's not going to, I'm not aborting Apple though, Jeff.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, question number 4, kind of related topic. What software should I use for my writing?
So let's go back to do not disturb for a starter. So don't even try to get yourself started without setting yourself up for success. I really like Brain FM, and this is something I've only discovered in the last couple of months. I actually had a chat with Jeff about this. He's been using it for a while. Brain FM is a mix of scientists meet musicians meet nerdy app software developers, and what it does is it creates music that changes your brain waves to get you into a focus or a creative or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So one of the things I found when I was writing was any kind of outside distraction, outside noise would send my little monkey brain off. So I used to put on classical music. It had to be something that didn't have lyrics to it, because again, monkey brain would start, So Brain FM, I've started using it in the last couple of months, and I really, really like that it does, I'm not the scientist, but it does get your brain into those kind of waves. So definitely something worth checking out. I always have Grammarly. Yep. I am not someone that you want to be asking where to stick an apostrophe. I still don't understand them. And Oxford commas, that's a discussion that you want to have with Michael, not me. Yep. So I do rely heavily on Grammarly. I did find it a little distracting at times. You just kind of get in the flow of writing a sentence or a paragraph, and then you'd see all these red lines pop up and you'd feel like you had to keep going back. So I did find that I was switching it off, writing my chapter, switching it on, and then going back through. OM Writer is another really cool one. So OM Writer, it's all one word. And that, again, just helps you kind of get into the focus of writing without distraction and staying kind of on point.
Okay, excellent. I'll quickly add to that as well with the, as an editor with Grammarly, it is a very good idea for guidance. Absolutely don't treat it as gospel, because to be honest, it's not always correct. So very good for guidance. It's very good at alerting you to things you might want to check, but yeah, be very careful with it. So we've just had someone ask what kind of software to use to write a book with photos. Okay, Lou, I'll field that one. I get asked this question a lot, what software should I use to actually write my book? And the answer is Microsoft Word. So I know a lot of people hate Microsoft Word, but it is the best program to use. Writing software, Papyrus, any thoughts? Yes. So I always advise authors, like to say, to work in Google Docs or Microsoft Word. And then if you work in Google Docs, export it to Word. The reason you want to export it to Word is most editors work in Word. So we've got editing templates we use. It drops into our page layout program really well. So unfortunately, the answer is Microsoft Word. There are apps like, so Papyrus, Jeff just mentioned, Scrivener's another one. I actually advise people usually to stay away from these sorts of things. The reason is, and I know this is a tech session and we're trying to give people great tech tips, but the reason I advise people to stay away from those is one of the biggest problems authors have, which we've already talked about a little bit, is procrastination. And if you're going to try and spend time finding new software, learning new software, that can end up being a whole day or a whole couple of days that you could have been writing. So whereas we all know how to use Microsoft Word, it's like if you ask a photographer what camera they use. Any professional photographer could say, I take great photos on my iPhone. It's not about the device you're using. So stick to Microsoft Word. Unless you're already using it, you know how to use it well. I don't think it's time well spent researching new word processing apps just to write your book. So that would be my 2 cents worth.
And Lou, to your point about the, writing with photos, I don't know if you've seen my book, but there's a lot of screenshots in my book, a lot of screenshots. Yes. Poor Michael, and I wrote in Google Docs because that's what I do, but I was exporting everything into Word. Your editor's probably going to want folders of the images and stuff separately anyway.
That's what I was about to say. Just to answer that properly for you, Lou. Do the writing in Microsoft Word. Stay in Microsoft Word for your text, and then there's a couple of things you can do for the images. You can either label them where you want them to go in the text. So just put insert, image 4.7 here, and then clearly label your file file image 4.7 and supply that separately. Or you can do screenshots and drop them into the Word file to show where they go. But you will absolutely need to supply the original images as well to your editor. Anything you drop into Microsoft Word loses resolution straight away. So that's not going to be the way to supply your material to your editor. We've just got one more question here. Oh, Lou saying thanks. You're welcome. Did that answer that for you, Lou?
Nice.
Excellent. Great. So you have Microsoft Word and supply the files as separate images and just say where they go in the text. Excellent. Okay, thanks, Tracy. So moving on. Okay, question number 5. What apps, and we've already mentioned Trello a little bit, what apps can I use for planning my book?
Yeah, so as I showed you at the start, I mapped my entire book out in Trello first. That was where I started, and that was my reference tool that I kept coming back to. What do I want to write about today? Dear God, I can't face cybersecurity again. I'm going to start writing about, whatever. Mind mapping, there's some great, anything I say, there's going to be another 10 apps that I haven't talked about. So if you know a good mind mapping tool that you're already using, use that. Mind mapping tools are fantastic for getting those initial ideas out. And I think it really depends, Michael, on what type of book you're writing as well. So with mine, the reason I went Trello was because there was so many sections to it, and then so many chapters, and then so many thoughts in the chapters. If I'd tried to do a mind map of that, I would have wrapped my house, 3 or 4 times over. If you're writing something that's a linear kind of thought to it, then I imagine, or around a central theme, I imagine the concept of a mind map would work really well for planning a book. So there's Mindly Map, there's Mind Maps Pro if you're a Microsoft user, Xmind is another one. And the other one that is worth mentioning if you're clipping research or doing that type of thing is Evernote as well. It's a good one for just, you read an article and you think, oh, I want to reference that research data or whatever. Evernote's a great one for just clipping quick bits and holding them in one location.
Fantastic. So I think I know the answer to this, Tracy, but just for people tuning in, did you map out the whole of your book in Trello first with all the chapters, all the subheadings, and then you kind of went back and filled them in? That was the way you wrote your book? Yeah. So that's a very common approach. So it's a great idea if you're looking at your book and saying, oh my God, I need to get to 40 or 50,000 words, and you're finding that really daunting. Prepare your contents list, map it all out, and then you just have to fill in a whole lot of sections that are 500 or 600 words each, and that seems much more achievable sometimes.
And really what that looked like, Michael, just to bring it back up again for anyone who's interested is, so I had this board open for probably a month or 2 even before I started writing, because the first thing I wanted to do was do I have all of the sections covered? Is there anything else I need to be talking about that I haven't talked about? And then once I'd kind of gone, yep, okay, I've got 12 sections of whatever that looks like. Now I started to go back and jot in here's the chapters that go underneath it. And again, that probably took another 4 weeks that I was then going through and going, okay, well, does that chapter really sit there or does it sit there? So the nice thing about Trello or that type of thing was you were able to move stuff around as you go, actually, I think that sits better over there and blah, blah, blah. And then as I started to write, I was coming in and using the labels for making sure that I had finished things, changing them colors, knowing, when I was working on something, I was changing it to yellow, for example, or green. So I could look every day and have a snapshot of, okay, here's where I'm at. This is the stuff that's done. This is what's still to be done. And then I could choose, okay, I feel like writing about sales today.
Yeah, especially important when you're writing a book like yours, when it's got that much content in it. You got to keep track of everything very carefully. Yeah. I'll just quickly add one more writing tip for anybody out there. Something along the lines of what Tracy just mentioned. Very, very important to keep track of all your references while you're writing. So there's nothing worse as an editor, and we go back to an author and say, look, you're going to need permission to get this, or we need to source it, or we need to check that you've got it right. Where did you get it? And also go, I don't know, I did that 3 months ago. I can't remember where it's from. So while you're writing, start up a separate, like say Google Doc or Word file. Any website you look at for more than 5 seconds, any book you refer to, just keep track of it while you're writing. You really don't want to have to go back and track all that stuff down later. So I'm just a quick, more an editorial tip than a tech tip, but hopefully that's useful for people. Okay, so question number 6. How can I use tech to manage my time? Again, a very challenging issue for authors, especially the people writing these kinds of books, running their own businesses and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So again, for me, it was do not disturb. I wasn't able to put entire days into this thing. I was having to, I think Andrew calls it writing between the lines or something. I was in the middle of doing other stuff and then having to go, right, I've got an hour. Like what can I write about? So do not disturb for the hour and then get into it. Some of the apps that we talked about earlier, the Pomodoro apps, that type of thing are really good as well. But the big one for me is, to your point earlier, Michael, I'm not a big fan of spending the time learning something just to try and save me time when I'm on a deadline. So I wasn't going to go, best apps for saving me time and then spending 3 weeks trying to learn those apps to save me time. Yeah. Use what's already available to you, and if it's as simple as switching your Wi-Fi off so you can't get anything in, do that. If it's, do not disturb, do that. But don't go down a rabbit hole thinking that you're going to save yourself 5 hours by spending 20 hours trying to find a new app.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your writing routine, Tracy? Did you have a couple of hours every day? I know you just said you had to fit it in where you could, but did you do a couple of hours every day or every evening? What was your kind of routine?
Yeah, well, hindsight, I kind of got lucky in the end that COVID hit. So lucky and unlucky. I lost every single client I had within 2 weeks of COVID hitting. So then I suddenly had a bunch of free time. So, so really my days became, I would get up, I would research for, a few hours in the morning because I still wanted, my topic in particular is changing every other week. So if I'm about to write about marketing, am I writing the latest information on Facebook Business Manager as an example? So if I was going to write about that today, I would spend the first couple of hours just reading and researching and make sure that what I was about to write was accurate as of today. And then I would, go have a coffee. I would come back in, I would close the door, and that would be it. I would be done. I'd actually set myself a word target. So if it took me 2 hours, it took me 2 hours, it took me 4 hours, it took me 4 hours. But I was on a word target of 5,000 words a day.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I kind of, once I'd mapped the book out right, I realized that it was going to be around 80,000 words. And I knew I wanted it done by that date. So then I just worked backwards and went, well, how, and that was 5,000 words a day. And there were a few days I didn't hit it. So towards the end, I think the final 2 weeks, I was on 10,000 words a day. And I did it, just
you got there, for sure.
I'm not moving that deadline again.
Yeah.
And I have people say to me, it's
Yeah.
okay, do it in, finish it in another month. And I'm like, no, I move every deadline. This is one that I need to stay hard with. So I just wrote to a word count.
Fantastic. Excellent. So we're up to question number 7. How can I use the cloud for my writing? So everything's in the cloud these days, cloud, everything's subscription service and this sort of thing. How can that help you with your writing?
Yeah, again, I think it's use what you've already got. So if you're a Microsoft user, they're using Microsoft Word. If you're a Google user, use Google Docs, because you can export to Microsoft Word and everything comes across. If you're an Apple user, use Apple Pages. Sorry, Jeff. You can export to Microsoft Word. Don't go looking for bigger solutions than it needs to be. As Michael said, we already operate in the cloud. Use what you've already got. You're familiar with it. You have no obstacle to overcome in terms of, I've got to sit down and learn this thing first. Just make sure, operating in the cloud, make sure you've got that auto-save thing going on. Make sure that you're downloading an extra copy. Make sure that you're emailing a copy to a friend. Make sure that you are doing that 3-2-1. But you've got no excuses either, because it means you can pick up your iPad and or your Surface Pro and go to the cafe and write for an hour, and everything's going to be there. You can be on a plane and write for 45 minutes and know when you land it's going to auto save when it catches up to the cloud. So use all of that. In terms of whether you've got to transfer files, like if you've got photos and things like that, I used Google Drive or OneDrive if you're a Microsoft user. I'm not a fan of Dropbox. Michael and I have just had this discussion. There's other cloud sharing platforms like Box, WeTransfer, things like that. So that would be my only other piece of advice, is have a separate storage solution for your cloud. If you're transferring larger files like photos or things like that, that you can be sharing seamlessly and knowing that people are going to get them.
Yeah, fantastic. So if someone was starting a cloud setup from scratch today, what would you recommend? Google or Box you've mentioned as well, or WeTransfer? What would be your suggestion for someone starting that up now?
Yeah, it really depends on the business and what it is you want to achieve. If you're looking for something really simple that's really collaborative and easy to pick up, I'm a fan of Google. It really is a very easy system to use. If you're looking for something that has a bit more detail, you do a lot of content creation and things like that, then definitely Microsoft, 365. And they all have their own storage solutions that come along with them. So Microsoft is OneDrive, Google is Google Drive. If you live in an entirely Apple universe and you don't need to associate with people outside of the Apple universe, then iCloud is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's really secure. It's really kind of easy to navigate, and they are starting to open that up a bit more. But I think it really comes down to what is the business and what are you trying to achieve.
Yeah, fantastic. Perhaps we should just quickly mention why you were a little bit wary of Dropbox. That's mostly security concerns, you were saying, without getting into too much detail.
Yeah. So they have had real security breaches over the last 12, 18 months. And sooner. I was saying to Michael before the call that I have a client who's a professional photographer, does a lot of real estate photography, and they had copyright images that went missing from their Dropbox folder and were replicated on billboards. And there's a ongoing legal discussion about what that looks like for the person. So, and that's not the first time I've heard that either. So not the most secure platform.
Yeah. Not a lot of fun. We might be looking at our Dropbox setup. This is actually kind of a related question. What apps do I need to protect my computer? So security, we've all heard stories like that. Security is such a big thing these days. Photos getting leaked online, all that kind of stuff. What apps do people need to protect their computers and their work?
Yeah, look, I actually have made a note about this because it is such an important topic that I didn't want to miss. It's called the Essential 8, is what the cybersecurity Australian Cybersecurity Department kind of have built around it. And just to kind of let you know how serious this is, during the last 18 months, the Cybersecurity Department were getting one phone call every 8 minutes from a small business owner that had been hacked, spammed, scammed, or in some other way. And on average, if a small business person is tricked or hacked, it's about a $9,000 bill minimum. So, I don't know too many people who can afford to suddenly go, oh, I'll just, there's $9,000 and off we go. And there's a lot that we can do to avoid getting caught up in that. And if you are hacked, you just roll back your website 24 hours and go, have at it, buddy, I'm good. So the easiest one is a 3-2-1 that we talked about earlier. 3 copies of your data, 2 locations, make sure one of them is offline. You should be doing that with everything. So we do that with our CRM. We do that with, any of our content creation. And we always have a copy of our website that is backed up. We do it on a daily basis, but depending on how often you update your site, weekly, monthly, if you're not uploading a lot of blogs or a lot of content to it, it's fine. Make sure you're using multi-factor authentication. So in some programs, it's going to be 2-factor authentication. In some programs, it's more. So again, before the call this morning, I was having issues with Trello. I don't know if anyone's noticed since it's gone to Atlassian, it's like navigating a little, hamster wheel, because I have multi-factor authentication switched on. So I've got to log in and then I've got to go to YouTube and authenticate it, and it comes back and around and around and around. You absolutely want to have multi-factor authentication. You just want to make it hard for people to kind of access your stuff. A big one for me is I will not open an attachment unless I'm expecting it. So if Michael sends me a PDF or something and that's out of the blue, damn sure I'm going to jump on Messenger or ring Michael and go, hey, I just got a attachment from you. And he'll go, yeah, I meant to da-da-da-da. I'm never opening, even if I love, adore, respect, whatever the person that's sending it. No way now that I'm just opening something blindly without knowing that it's, that it is expected. Make sure your team know that as well. Because often some of the easiest hacks are when a team member goes, oh, well, I thought, that you would know. Just let them know to assume that in the X-Files language, trust no one, and just assume that everything is out to hack you or scam you in some way, and that's going to be your best line of defense. Keep all your software up to date. So if you are a Microsoft user, they have Security Patch Tuesday. So make sure that you're logging in and updating and doing all of the patches as they come through. I had an update this morning. You want to make sure that everything is kept up to date. That protects you as much as you can, and your website in particular, if you're using WordPress or things like that, they are often having security patches come through. You want to be on top of those. Restrict who has access to what. So most of your software that you're using will have restrictions. So make sure, particularly if you're operating in a team environment, let's say your CRM, for example, not everybody needs to have access to your full CRM. They might just need to see a contact list. They might need to see your sales pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. So lock down who has access to what. Use a password manager. And please don't use the Google keychain. That's not exactly safe. So choose something like LastPass or something like that, where you are controlling the passwords, and have a protocol or a policy in place that if a team member leaves, you're immediately revoking, and that is just automatic in your brain that, okay, Michael's left, we remove him from Facebook, we ditch all the passwords, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen some really nasty stuff happen when people have left and they've still had access to things. Be cautious about downloading software or apps. In my opinion, if an app is free or a piece of software is free and it's not freemium, so not that you can try it as free and then upgrade, but if it's purely free, you are the product. Okay, they're taking something from you in order to supply that for you for free. Doesn't always mean that it's wrong or it's a bad thing, but you need to be aware of what you are exchanging for that free. So please never play any of those, Facebook, what kind of potato am I, or what kind of Disney princess am I? That is just, you're just opening yourself up. You may as well be kind of setting everything to public and giving Facebook your passwords. Whitelisting.
Which friend I am, Tracy.
I know. Sorry, you're a good friend. Just that good friend. Whitelisting. So that means you're only allowing certain things to operate on your computer. So you can say, yes, these programs are fine. Yes, these people are fine. Yes, these emails are fine. And anything else that's trying to come through just won't work. Awareness training is a big one. So making sure that your team, whether it's VAs, whether it's contractors, whether it's direct employees, know what your cybersecurity policies are, know that they're not supposed to open an attachment without, first checking, know that they're not to be going on to what potato am I on Facebook on the work computer, all that kind of stuff. Just keep your awareness training up. You don't want your VA to be your weak point into your business. Great example, only a few months ago, my Facebook ad account was hacked. Now I have multi-factor authentication. I had ticked all of the boxes, done all the right thing. The only thing I had done was I had left my Facebook ad manager connected to my account because I went, well, they did a really good job. I'm going to use them again. It was a pain in the palaver to set it up in the first place. So I'm just going to leave them there. And then when I'm ready to go, we're good. They got hacked and then backdoored into my account. So I was getting a message from Facebook to say my account was up to $300. I had my limit set really low. And when I looked at this, some kind of Ukrainian vibrator or something, which was really kind of interesting, Facebook don't care. I had to pay for it. And, then I had to go after my ad manager who thankfully had insurance. Last one, cybersecurity is really important. So make sure that you are seeking dedicated cybersecurity support. It is not something you want to stuff around with.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any recommendations for that sort of thing? Any sort of companies or anything that you'd suggest, or is that just something people can Google?
Look, there's a great person in the KPI community. For those of you in the Dent community, in our small business tech club, we use a guy by the name of Roger Smith. Care MIT. He's based in Canberra. He does all of the cybersecurity training for AGFA, the Defence Force Academy, and he is really, really good. Thanks, Daz.
Thanks, Darren. And so Jeff's also suggested a couple of other things. Bitdefender, which we use, I find that very, very good for security, and also Backblaze, which I don't know, for ongoing backup and restore. Do you know Backblaze at all, Tracy?
I haven't come across that one, but there's, like I said, for every one I mentioned, there's going to be another 10. If Jeff's recommending it, it'll be a good one.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I thoroughly agree with Bitdefender. That's very, very good, but I don't know Backblaze. One more I will echo that you just mentioned, Tracy, is LastPass. Oh my God, if you want to save some time in your business, get LastPass. We got it a few years ago. Everybody lives in password hell these days. I had all this encrypted stuff and all these notes for myself, and it took me half an hour to figure out what was what every time I wanted to log into anything. LastPass, it's all automated. Our stuff's so secure now, I have trouble getting into my own stuff sometimes. It's a fabulous system. If you're overseas or something and try and log in, it doesn't let you unless you've told it you're going overseas first. Fabulous, not very expensive. In fact, there's a free version. So that's my tech tip for the day. Check out LastPass. It's absolutely fantastic. Excellent. So getting to the end now, question number 9. Do I need an online presence as an author?
100%. But you also need a strategy behind it. So, and don't rely on social media. It needs to be a website. A website is the only bit of digital real estate that you will ever own. You don't own Facebook, you don't own LinkedIn. I have had far too many clients that have had their pages pulled down for whatever reason, and it's never their fault. And then they're left without a business. So as an author, you want a place where people can come, where they can check out your other blogs, read your other work, buy the book, look at the programs, do whatever it is that you're offering off the back. That has to be your website, and then your socials sit around the outside and keep directing people back to the website. But first of all, you've got to start and think through your strategy. Why do I want to be online? What am I trying to achieve? So, for me, there were 2 big games off the back of the book. One was speaking in workshops, and the other was to build a small business tech club. So everything I did and do around that book now comes back to the website and splits people into those various directions. So get really clear on your strategy, but get a website.
Fantastic. So just posting on social media occasionally and seeing what people like is not going to work?
Look, you can give it a crack.
Yeah, that's what so many people do for social media these days. And I do understand how hard it is to get a strategy together. But no, certainly if you're going to maximize your online presence, strategy is definitely the key.
Yeah.
So question number 10, what other apps can I use in my writing? So have you got any other suggestions for authors, Tracy?
Maybe not for writing per se, but some of the other apps that I really like are things like Odan, which is a copyright-free image website. So if you are doing socials or you're writing blogs and you're looking for an image to stick in the blog to put on LinkedIn or whatever, instead of going through Pixabay and various other copyright-free sites, Odan curates all of the sites and then gives you, feedback. So they're all copyright-free and they're all really, really, really handy. It just comes down to what do you want to use. What do you want to use things for? I think one of the big things that we all need to be aware as business owners and authors is there is a big shift away from socials. And the big trend overseas now is to move people into a portal environment where you control the conversation. And you'll see, a lot of people are talking about Kajabi, various platforms like that. It's thinking through what's your big long burn for the business. What do you want to be doing? It's, is authoring a thing for you that you want to be generating a lot of books and a lot of workshops and things off the back of that. You want to be getting people to log into your community where you control the conversation. Again, social media is so finicky that, they can get rid of you in a heartbeat and you've lost everything. You still need to have a presence there, but you need to be thinking through around what's the bigger play here. We've built our club and we're using a platform called Sweet Dash, which I really like, but starting to think through how can I be engaging with my community more, building a community, and then having those bigger conversations that will feed into the next book, the next whatever, and looking at really those online environments where you can do that. So the other stuff is Zoom, obviously. Andrew and I are going to do a webinar in another couple of weeks or another week about using Zoom in 2022, because I think we all dived in when we had to. But now there's been so many changes that, maybe we're not getting the most out of it in terms of breakout rooms or sharing audio or using Zoom apps or whiteboards or things like that. So it's really thinking about where does your business sit in the space and what are you trying to do and what tech is going to support you to the end goal.
And I think on social media, it's very important for people to think, again, strategy is always the word you come back to. Thinking about strategically about their social media. It's not just saying, I need to be on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. I've never in my life even looked at TikTok. I don't even really know what it is. It's so easy for people to think, I've got to be on this stuff. But what you've got to ask yourself is, are your readers going to be on there? Is your audience going to be on there? It's no point in you trying to build up on Instagram if most of your people are going to be on LinkedIn or Facebook. So definitely strategy is the key word. Have a think about what you're doing and don't just think you need to plaster yourself across all of these social media platforms just because they're all, all the rage these days. Well, it sounds like they're kind of declining in popularity, are they, Tracy?
Yeah, they are. Well, certainly Facebook is dying off. Well, it's still the most popular platform in Australia, but globally we're certainly seeing people kind of having enough of the Zuck. And Twitter's taken a dive, since Elon kind of has stroked his white cat on screen like the James Bond villain and decided that he's going to take that over. I think that the strategy, absolutely. The other thing with social media or blogging, any kind of content creation, is consistency. Yeah. So really do not bite off more than you can chew. If I'm working with a client to begin with and they're time poor, which let's face it, we all are, pick one platform and nail your consistency with that. So if all you can do is once a week, that's fine. Do it once a week, but don't then go quiet for 3 months and then come back at 5 times a week. Just stick to the consistency, use, scheduling tools and things like that if that's going to help you. So I sit down usually on a Saturday afternoon and plan my content for the week and schedule in as much as I can. And then I leave gaps for, I've just read an article and I want to share it, but that way I know that I'm reaching the people that I need to reach, when they're online and doing that kind of thing. One last thing that I just thought of, Michael, and you mentioned it at the start of the thing, YouTube. You've got publishcentral.tv. YouTube is a phenomenal platform that as small business owners we should all be maximizing, because I tell you what, the organic reach and the ability to target and reach people is outstanding on that platform right now. World's second largest search engine, and Google is really starting to index and share YouTube content even in Google when you search for something. So if you can get your head around YouTube keywords and things like that, probably a conversation for a bigger webinar, but I'm devoting a lot of time to YouTube this year, and it's really starting to pay dividends.
Fantastic. I'll just put in my 2 cents worth on what you mentioned a second ago, as well as the scheduling tools for social media. So for people who haven't heard of those, the one we use is Buffer, which I find the interface a bit clunky, but it works pretty well. What that does is you only have to do one post in the program Buffer, and it sends it across all your social media. So from one app, you can post on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of them, basically Instagram. So kind of like what you said, Tracy, what I do is I sit down one evening, and you just sit down in front of the TV, and I spend an hour loading up Buffer, and I don't have to look at any of our don't have to post on any of our social media for a week or two. And then all I do is I go in and I check the notifications to see what people are talking about, so that I can respond to anything. But it's really good. You don't have to be like 3 times a day, I've got to post something on social media, I've got to post on social media. So if you haven't checked out social media, what do they call them? Scheduling apps? Is that what you call them? Yeah, scheduling apps. Definitely check those out.
I use Tumblr. That's the one I've chosen. So I still use Facebook Business Manager for Facebook and Instagram, because I like the analytics and the insights off the back of it. And that's one thing I will say to you is we need to be data driven now. There's no point just throwing content out and hoping for the best. If you're throwing something to social media, you need to be looking at it the next week and going, well, how did that track? Did people engage? Did they like? Did they comment? So you're doing more of what people are engaging with. I went to Publer because the only reason I went to Publer is because I post on LinkedIn a lot, and sharing a article or something, you've got to put it in the comments, or LinkedIn will get pissy with you for sending people off the platform. Publer's been the only platform I've found where I can pre-schedule a comment. So I can write my post, and then I can add a comment and say, here's the link to the article that I was talking about, blah, blah, blah. One last thing, because I know we need to move on, Michael. There has been some changes to the algorithm, so please be a little bit cautious if you are writing once and posting to the same content to all platforms. It will actually bring your reach down now. They are looking at duplicate content across the platforms. So it can be a similar thing. You might just need to tweak the words a little bit.
Okay, very good tip. Good to know. Thank you. So we know it's getting to the end of the hour now. We know people are busy, so we don't want to keep anybody longer than they have to. We did have one last bonus tip, which is what's Tracy's #1 tech tip for all IT users. We've kind of covered it, but I'll let you give us that one bonus tip anyway, Tracy.
Have a strategy. It always comes back to the strategy. And the interesting thing for me with technology is, as business owners, we have a business plan, we have a marketing plan, but we don't have a tech plan. And we end up with all these ad hoc pieces of technology that we get in the moment because someone says to us, oh, Trello's really good. And we go, oh, Trello's really good. Stop, step back, have a look at, what have you already got? Where are you going? All that kind of stuff. I'm happy to give you a link to my tech strategy if you're interested, but you really need to kind of step back and put a plan in place, or else you're going to end up with this patchwork quilt. And that's why people end up in overwhelm. It's why people kind of go, there's too many choices, I'm not doing anything. It's because you don't have a strategy. So
fantastic. I think one of the best tips you've given today, Tracy, is pick one social media platform and focus on it and do it well. I think, not just as authors, but as business owners, so many of us feel we have to be across all of those platforms. And it's so hard to stay on top of all of that. And my last tip, I will re-emphasize LastPass again, only because I think it's saved us, it saves us hours and hours and hours. You wouldn't believe how much difference it makes. So definitely check that out. If anybody's got any questions, please throw them in the chat box. Otherwise, it's 11:25, so we'll start to wrap up. No more questions? Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Jeff. Nice to see you online again. Always love seeing Jeff's name online. Annetta, Bev,
Yeah, thanks for coming along, everybody. Tracy's just got a fabulous product called Business Club, which she was just going to mention briefly. So do you want to tell us a bit about your business club, Tracy?
Yeah, so I started the Small Business Tech Club off the back of the book, and basically it's for small business owners to learn from the best experts globally. So we've got I was just chatting to a Google Ads person before the call, actually, who's been doing it for 14 years and is ranked top 10 globally. We bring these experts in and we help you understand the bits of technology that are going to impact and leverage your business the best. And that's a monthly kind of thing. You can opt in monthly, quarterly, or annually. Happy to share a link if you're interested. If you Google thedigitalguide.com.au, scroll down, you'll find the Small Business Tech Club there. But definitely worth having a check or having a chat if you want to know more about it or more about how I can help. Which publisher did Tracy use to print her book, Michael? I used Michael.
And the last tip of the day, get a copy of the book. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Got everything you need in there, 80,000 words of gold. So if you need tech help, grab a copy.
Let's say 79,000. There was probably 1,000 words that were filled. Let's be real.
Yeah, it's available on Amazon, online from Tracy's website. I'm sure you can buy it from your site, Tracy.
Absolutely. I'll even if you buy it from me.
Yeah, not hard to find. So highly recommend that. Lou, most happy to have a chat. We help Tracy with all aspects of her editing, printing, production. So feel free to get in touch if you wanted to about your
definitely just work with Michael.
Thanks, Tracy.
You've got a webinar coming up.
Yes, we do. Yep. Last thing for the day. Our third official Publish Central webinar, so we're becoming veterans at this, is the 7 steps to sales success for ambitious authors. So that's with Rachel Burke from Salespace. She's fabulous for those of you who know her. So that's all about, it's not about selling your book. It's all about maximizing your sales in your business on the back of your book, which Tracy's been very, very good at and mentioned that she's working hard at that side of things. So that's on the 28th of June at 10 o'clock. So check out our Facebook page if you want more info on that, or sign up for our newsletter. So yeah, that's our next Publish Central webinar in about a month.
Excellent. So, and Michael's going to share your email so I can send the blog out. So all of the links will be in there. If you want to pop in the chat, I would love to know which is the one app that you are going to have a crack at. And if I can recommend one, it's probably Brain FM.
I will be checking that out. That sounds fantastic. So thanks so much. Feel free to get in touch with either Tracy or myself with any questions. We're both more than happy to chat to anybody who needs further help. And thanks so much for tuning in, and you'll get a link with the recording in the near future. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Tracy. Great to see you.